Welcome to another episode of Industrial Amputation, where all three amigos are back in the saddle. Good to see you, Levi. Um, Today, we have the esteemed
Thank you.
honor of welcoming the incredible talent behind Dead Voices on Air, our friend, Mr. Mark Spybey. Mark, thank you so much for sharing some time with us. How are you
You're
doing today?
very welcome. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm still
Awesome.
here, which is always reassuring, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is something to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right in. Last month, you released digitally Dadu Tutu,
Yeah.
available with Bandcamp separately or with your entire digital library of 111 releases, currently at 70% off. So kids, get over there and get you some. Uh,
Here's the clue.
that
You can get it all for free as well.
Yes, I was gonna mention
Because
there is a link that Emergency Hearts has put out. So when you search
yeah.
for Dead Voices on Air on Bandcamp, you're going to have two different ones to go to. One of them is a free archive. Now, get in there and get some stuff because there's a
Yeah.
shit in there. But don't be shy about getting over to the one and showing some love to this artist. I know that he's a big influence on a lot of people that watch this show. I've got a lot of close personal friends who are very big fans of yours, and but yeah, we get over there and show this man some love because he's definitely shown us his love with this album. Man, that cover of Jeepster, fucking fantastic.
It
He
only
read it, man. A real surprise.
lasts,
um,
I think it
yeah,
only lasts about
and
48
the
seconds.
yeah, I know, but it's all I saw the name on in there, and I'm like, surely not. And then I'm like, oh yes,
That's
yes, that
right.
was it was yeah, that's incredible. And
Uh,
the cover of Glassblower from Download on there is just absolutely amazing too. The whole album is just incredible. Do you
thanks.
mind
Yeah.
taking us through the this amazing release, recording, themes, instrumentation, and stuff?
Sure, yeah. Well, what happened is that about 2 years ago, I moved back to my hometown when I retired, and I hadn't lived here for like 40 years or something. And then after a little while, a friend of mine who I used to make music with about 40 years ago
No.
got in touch and said, "Hey, let's get together." So we did, and then there was another friend of ours who was a bass player, and we invited him along, and he'd actually sold his bass, and during COVID, he bought another bass because he was bored. And And he came along and we started to make music, and it
Mm,
was just brilliant. It's just
mm,
absolutely brilliant. So um, we just kept at it. And it's actually a bit less than 2 years ago.
yeah.
And then we released one album, um, and then we did a show, and then we brought in another friend of ours from Old to play with us. And we just carried on. And you know what's beautiful is I suppose two things. One is that I'm playing the drums again, which is something I didn't do for
A long
since I was in
time.
my early 20s, but I
Yeah.
started out as a drummer. I'm really enjoying that. And
Oh, no.
secondly, you
Yeah.
know, it's that being in a room with other people and making music is so
Yeah.
much better than being by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much
Definitely.
more exciting. It's that. Do you know what I mean? Once you've and also what we found is, especially the bass player and I,
Hmm.
because we played together before,
Yeah.
as soon as we got back together, we were like just
Locked in.
meshed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, totally locked in. And
Wow.
when I play the drums by myself, it seems terrible. But when I play the drums with Steve, the bass player, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh wow, it just works. It just works.
Yeah.
And so,
That's cool.
making music with like-minded people and having fun together and being
Yeah.
able to release it is surely what it's all about, at this stage of the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
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 So
Oh,
we're just having a lot of fun. I mean, one of the guys recently retired and he's left us, but we just carrying on as a threesome and we're just pulling in other friends to work with us. But I mean, that's only it is a significant part of what I'm doing, but it's only one part of it, if you know what
yeah.
I mean, because I've got
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
collaborators who I I'm keen to continue to work with, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it's the Dadu thing is just a ball. We played another show last November, and a lot of people come along here, which is kind of nice. I mean, I think most of them are friends and family, but it just looked beautiful and it sounded beautiful. And we did Jeepster, and you know, we did a bunch of songs in addition to a lot of the more noisier kind of ambient stuff that we do as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Fascinating.
yeah, I mean, you know, what we've done is we've completely dropped the idea of using laptops, any kind of backing tapes, and we're completely making music live.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's
And
cool.
that's so wonderful to do that, you
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
feel liberated.
Yeah.
Um, absolutely, absolutely feel free. It's great. Love it.
That's
Yeah.
good.
That is
That's
awesome.
very
So do
good.
you have a starting point when you record? Like
Yeah, you
a
know what the starting point
session
is?
thing?
Like yesterday when we got together, we get
Yeah.
together, we might talk about something, probably not about music. We go in the studio, I switch everything on, and I plug everything on, and I press the record button.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's
And
yeah.
yesterday we worked on two or three things that we'd had in process as well. So occasionally one of us, in this case Gary, one of the guys in the band, he'd worked on some stuff and sent it to us. So we did some overdubs,
Mm.
and we're quite methodical about how we do it, because once we improvise,
Mhm.
the finished product will never sound like the original improvisation. You know,
Yeah.
we then go on, we play with it, and we work it, and I edit it, and I loop bits, and I take things out.
Yeah.
I mean, most of what we do is use, but it's a starting point for something else. But that starting point is don't be afraid to click the record button
Yeah. No,
because that
I
moment of genius is always just one step away from the moment of complete madness.
yeah. No, I can't tell you how many times I've been jamming with somebody and I'm like, that was fucking brilliant. All right, play it back. And they're like,
I
that
didn't
wasn't
record it.
recorded. I'm like, are you
I
damn it,
didn't
man?
record it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lost some
Hmm.
really, really good stuff that way. I mean, because you get on a jam groove and there's just all kinds of possibilities. I love that. So
Yeah.
in March of 2024, you released the wonderful tome on emergency hearts and Bandcamp called Explicit and Purpose. Thank you
Ah,
so much for getting us a digital copy of that, by the way. You have
you're
an
welcome.
engaging style that really holds attention. I was quite lost in it. Honestly, felt like I could have been there with you. Wish I could have been there with you for sure. When did you begin work on this book?
Probably about 3 years ago. The idea for writing a book was put to me by Scott Crow, who heads up Emergency Hearts, the label I've been working with in Austin. I mean, Scott came to me out of the blue and started to support me really, and he's been unbelievably supportive. But Scott's an author. He's a very well-known anarchist author,
Mm.
and he's written many books. And because he'd seen some of my stuff in interviews, he said, "You know, you should write a book." So I started, and I collated a few things together, but then I wrote additional things. And the real help I got though was from two different editors, um, because you want a critical ear to kind of look at what you critical set of eyes to look at what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, so that uh, um, you know, conceptually they can kind of parcel it together. And in the end, that helped a lot. But the flow of the book, it's not like a kind of I'm going to start at the beginning and finish at the end kind of book. I mean, it kind of start. I think the first chapter is probably about Vancouver. I think,
Yeah, I
which
Mm.
is
believe
not the
you.
start. Which is not the start of my story.
Yeah.
But it just so happened to be that that's where the editor said, that seems like a convenient place to start. I mean, in many respects, Vancouver is where I got my lucky breaks, you know, and
Mm.
um, but it wasn't a difficult process to write, I have to say. It wasn't really that difficult. I think the only thing about the time is that it takes time to get stuff back from editors. So you'll get a draft back and then you've got to go through the whole thing again. I mean, by the time it's released, you're pig sick of reading it, you know. uh,
Yeah.
which is why I haven't picked it up for a while. But it it feels it's also a bit like, and you're reading something that you've written that's about yourself.
Hmm.
It's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it? It feels a bit
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Kind of like an old pair of underwear laying at your side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like I always regard it. It's a bit like looking in the mirror and saying,
You
"Hey,
go,
you look fantastic." I mean, how many of us look in the mirror and say, "Hey, hey, baby,"
Hey,
hey,
baby.
baby. Yeah.
Most of us look in the mirror and say, "Oh shit, I'm old."
Yeah.
Wait,
Who's that?
those were
Who's that
underwear?
looking back out of the mirror at me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, another spot, It's that kind. It's
No.
but it was all credit to Scott for encouraging me to do it. And the other person I need to give a shout out to, and I don't know if you know this guy, Charles, but a guy called David Babbitt from Chicago.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
David Babbitt was involved with Invisible. He was an artist who worked for Touch and Go Records, and he
Oh.
was there in one of their in-house art guys, basically. So he did a load of work for Martin and Invisible, and
Mhm.
Martin got me in touch with him.
That's
And
with him.
since
Yeah.
then, I've been a friend of Dave Babbitt's. Well, I mean, he's a genius, really. He
Oh, yeah.
really is talented. Um,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
Dave Babbitt actually formatted the whole thing for me
Dude,
because
no.
that's a big part of writing a book, isn't it? Or publishing a book. It's what it actually looks like as well.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I
thank
have
you to both of those guys, man,
yeah, I'm
because
doing my journals. I'm
Yeah,
yeah,
putting together a book too,
fantastic.
memoirs, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and-
while I'm here in Colorado, I'm just doing a lot of writing and a lot of notes, you know, and
yeah.
remembering stuff. So it's a cavalcade of memories, man. It's a
I
lot
mean,
of.
have you got somebody in mind to publish it?
I don't know. I think Martin's looking at it for me
Yeah,
and my
yeah,
fiance.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But
I think Martin
that's
would probably do a really good job. Yeah,
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 yeah. So
good, yeah,
I'm doing that.
yeah. Well, that
Um,
would be one hell of a read, Charles. I tell you that.
no.
right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was gonna
One
have
hell of a
Joy.
read.
I was gonna have
I look
Joy.
forward to that.
So yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward, you know, and
Joey,
stuff.
you want
But
to
it's
jump in?
it's really good to see you again, man.
I
It really is.
know, I know it is. And what I've got to say, Charles, is that you've become somebody that's very, very important for so many people. Do you know that?
Uh,
I think you have. You've become a very important person. And I think it's just this, you radiate some kind of beauty, and it's wonderful to see you. It is really
thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Um,
so much. It's good. I see you got the stripes.
oh yeah, yeah. So,
Yep.
Junior Atkins.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Junior.
Atkins
Junior
Junior.
Atkins.
Oh fucking hell! Oh fucking hell!
I know, I know. Have you talked to him?
We exchange messages
Yeah.
fairly often,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that I'm coming to Chicago, so I'll get to go to the museum, and
Yeah.
yeah,
uh, look at things and talk to people. But,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
supposed to go
That'd be
there
awesome. Yeah.
too sometime this summer,
yeah,
so but other than that, I just gotta keep creating and
yeah,
keep
yeah,
creating, you know.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know really many people here in Colorado, but yeah, it's happening, you know.
Are you in Denver?
Now I'm outside Denver, just like maybe 10 minutes away from Denver. So
Okay.
I'm in Aurora, you know.
I've been to Aurora. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, yeah, I've
But
been to.
it's
Yeah.
it's really, it's not like Chicago, you know.
No.
No, not at all. It's
I mean,
like cowboy.
curiously enough, most of my really good, strong connections in the States now are in Denver.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've been there, I think, 4 times in the last 8 years or so to play shows.
Oh, okay.
Um, And it all started through Randall Frazier
I
from
was
Orbit
gonna
Service,
ask
who's now
about
in
that.
the
Yeah.
Pink
Oh yeah, yeah,
Dots.
Randall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Randall is
I
really.
Um,
think he just
He's
moved
been.
overseas for the Pink Dots.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in Bologna in Italy.
Bologna.
Uh,
Yeah.
him
yeah,
Yeah.
him and his
yeah.
wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Is he
but
gonna
I
move
mean,
there?
I
You
don't
think?
know. I think he's kind of in between. In
Yeah, yeah,
between. Yeah. Because he's
yeah,
still got a lot of responsibilities over in Colorado,
yeah,
a
Yeah, he does.
lot of
Yeah.
activities and clubs
yeah,
and family
yeah.
and
He took time. He took
Yeah.
time
yeah.
out to come and visit me, and we spent some time. And he got me familiar with my Apple.
Oh
You know.
yeah, good,
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a
So
lovely man. He's a really
yeah,
lovely guy.
yeah, he is. He is. He's super cool. You
Well,
know,
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
so happy to
I really
see
and
like
working
him.
with Edward. 'Cause they are both just genuinely awesome people. Eric too.
yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, they
Yeah,
are. Yeah.
that was such a great
Um,
fit.
they're on tour right now in Europe.
yeah. I told,
Um,
I
and
talked to
the other guys that I'm very close to are from a band called The Drood. And I got to know them because one of them, Nathan, played in Orbit Service. And I came over and we did a show in Denver, and then we did a show in Albuquerque that was just fantastic.
him.
And I'd not met Nathan before, but he played live with us, him and another guitarist called Dennis. And it
Yeah.
all just works so well. I mean, it's
Wow.
Mhm.
such a beautiful collaborator.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm working with Nathan all of the time at the moment. Him and I, and he's been over here twice. He's played.
Oh,
He played with us when we played live Dead Voices in Andadu last November. And he came over the December before that, and he supported us. He did a support slot.
Oh, right on.
Um,
mm,
so it's got these really strong connections.
mm.
They're the really good people
Yeah.
to know, Charles, in Denver, in terms of who knows who,
Oh,
musically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I'll
Oh,
introduce
okay.
you and I'll hook you and Nathan up.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, that'd be
Cool.
cool.
Definitely. That would help a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
do you have any plans to release a book of your poetry?
Um, yeah, that's possibly a good idea, Joe, most of what's really strange is that every time I write poetry now, it's for lyrics. And I find it increasingly difficult to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, I included some of them in here.
Hmm.
Oh,
So it may be that I couldn't really put together a lot, but what Scott actually wanted me to do, which I still must do because he's really into the idea, is to put out a book of my photographs, so
mhm.
art photographs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, what I would want to do with that is to create a kind of narrative through poetry through the whole of the thing.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I still intend to do that. And when I think about it, I don't know why I haven't done it because it's not going to take me that long. And Scott will publish it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I'd like to. It's funny. I don't really have a lot of confidence in the things that I write, and but then again, I don't really have a lot of confidence in the music that I make. So it's like-
Well,
Well,
um,
that's in all
it's
of us.
working for you.
well, if I did have confidence in it, then I think I'd be A, narcissistic, and B, bit deluded, and
Mm.
and
Yeah.
C, a little sad.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
Yeah.
I think that's why it works for you is because you're fairly self-effacing and that's refreshing, honestly.
Very much
well,
so.
I don't like to. I've never liked this kind of distance between musicians and the people who like their work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Mm.
do.
Um,
I do.
I mean, I've gotten into trouble with some people I've played with before for being too familiar with the crowd. Like, so hanging out with people in the
Yeah.
Wow.
audience.
Really?
Yeah. Because some people like the mystique, don't they, of
Oh
being
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
behind the
Some
dressing
people
room door.
they want to be a rock god. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
in, and it's like, and then going out. But for me, hey, every time I've ever done a show or a tour, I've always worked on the basis of this. This might be the last opportunity I ever get to do this.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, and it
yeah.
might be the last time I ever do it. So if that's the case, I'm going to make the most of it. And
Right.
I love meeting people. I
Yeah.
love talking about what it feels like to live in Albuquerque. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it doesn't matter where it
Yeah.
is. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that. I love the discourse really, and the
Yeah.
making of friends, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
It
and that's
is a
always felt really important to me. Yeah,
yeah,
It is.
camaraderie is
yeah,
amazing. And when
yeah, yeah,
there's people that do their thing and people know who they are, like you, and then there's people in the audience that maybe haven't gotten any exposure, but they're still very talented fucking people. And
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
and it's
know.
incredible the kind of
Yeah,
people that you can meet if you're willing to be open to that. So
yeah.
I
You
like
have you
just
music.
want
thought of
lucky. You just want
huh?
lucky break away from being a superstar, aren't you? Really, if you think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically.
True.
So
Definitely. I
have
like
you
to be
thought
like the next person. I like to be involved with people. Whenever
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like,
yeah,
connect with
yeah,
them. You know,
yeah,
I used to do that before I even became a musician.
yeah,
yeah,
And it made me, it introduced me to playing music,
yeah,
meeting people and
yeah,
meeting bands instead of just, that mystique. It's one thing, but nah, I like human contact.
yeah. Me too. Me too. I
yeah, me
really
too.
do.
Yep.
That's the
Yeah,
magic of it all.
yeah.
Gotta
Yeah,
have it.
Absolutely.
those
Yeah,
people tend to find
I
each
got
other too. Yeah.
Austin, Texas, Seattle,
Hmm.
yeah.
England, me. That's a connection there.
I
And I
know.
love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You
I
know,
know. I
that's the
know.
magic
Yeah,
of it.
it is. It really is.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And Gloria.
and
Levi
Gloria too.
and I,
Yeah,
yeah, and
Yeah.
Levi
Gloria.
and I met each other at a show in Seattle. I can't even remember what year it was. He was doing a Mechanismus thing, and I wasn't expecting him to be there. He showed up with a band called Project 44 that I was not familiar with at the time. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Yeah.
And he and I was like
We met.
two long lost brothers reconnecting,
Yeah.
and we've been inseparable since. So
Yeah. That's
I
cool.
feel like I've known him my whole life, and that's
good.
a great.
Yeah,
Joey too.
yeah, yeah,
I don't. It's hard to conceive of a time before them being in my life, and I love it when I meet people
Yeah.
and it's that kind of connection.
yeah. Me
Yeah.
too. I really do. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you thought about or have any desire to perhaps work your writing into a mass media experience with maybe film or stage, live sound or live imagery kind of thing?
Sounds like a lot of work.
It does sound like a lot of work.
Sounds like a lot of
That'll
work.
work.
I
Yeah.
don't know. What interested me is that quite a few people now are doing kind of spoken word tours, aren't they? They're just turning up and talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'd kind of like that if there was a panel of
yeah,
interesting people who could talk about their lives and talk about
yeah,
things that interest them. And
Yeah. I'm supposed to
um,
do
yeah,
I'm supposed
yeah,
to do that at the museum.
oh, right, yeah, well, yeah,
I'm
um,
supposed to, sit back and tell everybody about my exploits and tour things. And
and people want to hear it, Charles.
yeah,
yeah. They
I
People
know.
absolutely
want,
do.
it's a life that's been fantastically led.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah, it
mean?
is.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, just if I think back to that Pigface tour that we did. I only did one tour with Pigface,
yeah,
and I didn't do the whole tour. I did sort of the majority of it, but I had
yeah,
to go back halfway because I had a job in those days, and
yeah.
it was. I
I
mean,
remember.
every single day was. I can only describe it as a succession of amazing adventures.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I
They
know
weren't always
you.
great adventures, but they were amazing
Yeah, I
adventures.
know. I know. I thought you. I thought you had gotten sick.
Yeah, well,
It
it was
was,
Dave Wright. Yeah.
yeah, but
Um,
everyone actually really got sick.
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
and we all had
Do you remember
shots.
that? I don't know if you recall, but once we'd been through Montreal,
Yeah, I know.
they
It
Dave
was,
got sick in Rochester, and then after the show, after the Rochester, we
yeah,
all went to Montreal, and we had to go
yeah,
over the border. And once we got into Montreal, they quarantined us on the bus. Do you remember in the
yeah, I
venue?
remember.
And they gave
God,
us all this medication that turned our
yeah,
piss pee, our
yeah,
our, our piss
uh,
bright orange.
orange.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I know it's scary. Yeah, I remember
And everywhere you went on the bus,
that.
once somebody had been to the toilet, you could see little drips of orange.
Orange, I know. I know. I know.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that's when I realized Montreal is a dirty city.
Yeah.
A dirty city. I was like, well, I thought Montreal was like, the expo, everything. And it was like really, it was like dirty. I mean, Toronto reminds me of Chicago,
And yeah, it
but
does. Yeah,
but
it is like Chicago. Yeah, but at
yeah.
Montreal, I remember we played at this venue called Foo Foofs. It was called Foofs, Foo Foo Electronique, but I think they just changed it to Foofs. And
Oh.
everybody said there, it was a great venue. I played there several times. But everybody said there on the stage, there was this iron bar that was really, really low, and everybody said, "Watch the iron bar, watch the iron bar." And of course, everybody walks on stage and hits the head on the iron bar.
Oh yeah.
Everybody going, watch
I
the iron
know.
bar. Watch
What
the iron bar. Oh
time?
yeah, right. Oh, poof,
Well,
straight into the
I
iron
know.
bar.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one hell of a tour. That was fun. You know.
Yeah,
That was kind of fun. It was hard. It was cold, you know.
yeah. It was
Uh,
cold. It was everybody got sick, really sick.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
the tour that Mufti Einheit was on from Neubauten,
yeah, exactly.
and he severed his Achilles tendon,
Tendon, yeah, sure did.
and he had this sort of space boot on.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite Lee Fraser story. I'll tell you, my favorite Lee was on the same bus as me. You were on the other bus, and
Yeah.
Mufti and his band were on our bus. And let me just say that Mufti, although he was a seriously wonderful, really lovely guy, let me just say that he didn't smell terribly good, especially after about a month on the road. And of course, this boot he had on his leg stank. I mean, it was awful. And
Oh,
Oh
so,
man.
Lee was talking, my wife was with me, Elaine, and he was talking to us. And Lee, usually with a bottle of vodka, he was like saying, "Oh, yeah, what we're going to do about this boot? It stinks." And Elaine, being a nurse, was saying, "Oh, it needs to be cleaned with alcohol. Like
yeah.
that will get rid of the smell." So he said, "All right, let's do it then." So he took the boot outside, poured a bottle of vodka over it.
Oh,
And the lemons going, no, no, no. I meant, like health kind of care alcohol,
God.
rubbing alcohol, not vodka.
Oh man.
Leave
That was
Lee
hilarious.
cracking me up.
Oh,
Yeah, we had Leon.
Absolutely hilarious. Yeah, I
Lee.
know. So I watched that actually. I watched it. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
I
good
haven't.
seeing Lee.
Yeah, I haven't seen him since then. I think I haven't. I don't
Oh
think I've
yeah.
seen him since then. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
How close are you? That far or close near your
We're
family?
about 5 hours in a car from London.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, so we're north, about 100 miles from Scotland.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I
Jeez.
mean, it's 3 hours on a train to London from here.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's that's new to me. I haven't been in England in a long time. It's maybe 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I miss Camden.
Yeah. Camden's, yeah, I haven't been there for a long time. I always used to hang out in Camden. It was, yeah, it's a nice place.
Yeah, I like
Interesting.
Camden. Camden
Good
reminds me,
shops. Yeah.
yeah, it reminds me
every
of
time I hear the word Camden, I immediately think of the Chameleons UK.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All those
Their Camden show. I've got that on
yeah.
video somewhere, and
Mm,
they released the they released that on a CD set of their live stuff a little while back.
Mm.
Because I think
Well,
they're actually from, I think they're a Manchester band, aren't they? The
yeah,
Chameleons.
they're
Yeah,
Manchester.
yeah.
Yeah.
Camden
Yeah.
reminds me of Maxwell Street in Chicago. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. I mean,
back
there's,
before it got gentrified.
yeah,
You know,
there's lots of famous venues in Camden as well, like
yeah,
the Roundhouse,
yeah,
Dingwalls. You know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. One of the EMF guys were took me there, and
All
I,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
to Jordan and all of them,
yeah,
and it was like you go
Partners.
there, and Mary Biker
yeah.
was really, he showed me around, and some, eating fish and chips I thought was gross. It's like greasy.
I know.
And I was like, nah,
I
man,
know. Yeah, I know.
you
Yeah, it's
know.
because you're a cultured kind of guy, you see, Charles.
Nah. Nah, I'm all right. I'm just a knuckle.
Yeah.
Mark, this week was the 6 year anniversary of a very talented and kind individual in our scene passing. That person, of course, was Phil Western. Can you
Yeah.
talk about the impact Phil had on your life?
Yeah, yeah. He was yeah, Phil and I got to know each other because Phil was a friend of Dwayne's and I was a friend of Kevin's. And Phil started to make music with Dwayne. I started to make music with Kevin, and Kevin said, "Hey, why didn't we all get together?" So that's how I met Phil. And he was very young then. I mean, he was in his early 20s, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and we made interesting music together, but at the time we never really kind of gelled. I think he thought, I remember him at one point, he actually did say to me, "Stop acting towards me like you're my dad." You know, and I was like going, "Oh, right. Well, I probably was, I was probably
Yeah.
like wagging my finger at him, you know."
Yeah.
Um, but I think that was a compliment. And then sort of after I'd left Download, in the years after that, we started to get very close and we just got closer and closer and closer and closer. And we started to make music again as B Hatch in it's probably about 2006 or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then we went on tour together in 2008. And after that, we were in contact a lot. I mean, I don't think, yeah, maybe a week never went by when we weren't actually speaking. And yeah, he was a lovely guy. He was, Phil wore his difficulties. I mean, everybody knew about Phil's difficulties. It wasn't as though this was a closed book. And it also wasn't as though those issues that he experienced overwhelmed him in his life all of the time. They just didn't. I mean, he
Mhm.
would go for periods of years without touching anything.
Yeah.
Um, and I think his accidental death, was a really tough thing for me to take, and for Kevin as well,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because he was such a sort of vibrant part of our lives. I mean, he's a lovely guy, chaotic, lovable, funny. His laugh was endearing to everybody who knew him. Wonderful smile. Um, but he and I became really close, like really close friends, good friends. So
Yeah.
yeah, I miss him a lot. One of the things that I found incredibly helpful and also very moving, and it's meant a lot to me since Phil passed, is that I've become very close to his family,
Good.
Oh, okay.
especially his mum, and
Yeah.
we're in touch quite often, and
Beautiful.
we haven't actually met up yet because I've not been over. But
Mhm.
I'd love to meet up. But we have FaceTimed each other and things, and she's an incredible person, absolutely wonderful person.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I mean, I think something quite exciting has just happened as well. Is that I mean, this project seems to have taken forever to put together, but some other friends of his, I think it's a guy from Seattle actually,
Mhm.
Seth Burnham, I think, has put together a compilation of people who knew Phil well,
Yeah.
have done remixes of some of Phil's music, and it's coming out very, very soon.
Very soon. Yep.
Um, so that's really exciting. It'd be interesting to hear it. It's taken several years to do, so it's been a real labor of love, hard work, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, I miss him a lot. I mean, he made a real, I don't, made a really strong impact on me in my life. It took us a while for us to gel, but after that,
Mhm.
we got over the fact that I wasn't his dad and I was overprotective of him.
Yeah.
Um, we were really close. I mean, I think it's really hard when you lose somebody like that who, I mean, I'm sure, Charles, you understand what I'm going to say, is that through making music with other people, you actually develop relationships that you can't quantize in any way at all.
Yeah, right.
You can't actually say what it means to you. There's a connection there that's way, way stronger than
Way
language.
strong. Way stronger.
You
Definitely.
know, and I think I've got that with Kevin. I had it with Phil, and I've got it with my friends who I'm playing with now. I've got it with some other friends. You've
Yeah.
got this kind of like, togetherness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many sort of shared memories
Yeah.
that
That's,
should enrich our lives. Even though he's no
yeah.
longer with me, those memories enrich me in my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I miss
Definitely.
him. I miss him an awful lot. An awful lot.
Yeah.
I think of him a lot as well. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I feel you. Feel you there. Definitely.
Yeah.
I miss so so now let's see. Now I just I figure I want to get the get some things out like the idea of recording and everything, getting some now that I know how to record my bass, you know, that it's like I'm healing here in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so now I know how to record my bass and record and send waves and send files, which is cool. As far as playing, my dexterity and everything is gotten kind of hard because I've
Yeah.
had some strokes,
Yeah.
from my neuropathy from my elbow to
Yes.
my hand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm still able to function enough,
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
some, I can't do the blazing crazy stuff, but I
Yeah.
can still throw it down, and
Throw it
that's
down
what
with
I'm
me,
doing.
brother. Throw it down with me. Let's make some music
Definitely,
together.
definitely, definitely,
Perfect, man.
definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah,
If you send me some bass
yeah,
loops, I'll do some drums. We'll just
yeah,
see what happens.
yeah,
I'll do it.
yeah. That
I'd be
means a
honored
lot.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Randall Fraser was really helpful. He was
Yeah.
really
Good.
helpful. And then that was good. That's good. That's
Well,
one thing I got to meet Randall Fraser,
yeah.
Gavin. That's cool. He's really
But the
great.
great the great thing about Randall is that he's a very good technician as well.
Yeah, yeah,
He knows his way around gear where I don't.
yeah, yeah.
I just
Same here. It's
yeah.
me. So he
I'm
got
just
me around.
yeah. That's
He got
right.
me how to at least function, and I'm getting
Yeah.
more familiar with it.
Well, the good news is that it's very likely that I'm going to be in Colorado in November, late
Okay,
October, early November. There's a couple
okay,
of shows that I'm going to be playing at with a certain band who I won't say because I don't want to
okay.
jeopardize anything. But if I'm saying this out loud because you know what? I really want to meet you, Charles.
Yeah, okay, okay. Awesome.
Really want to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll be here. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yep.
So yeah. So now I guess Martin sent me some dowels. He sent me a Charles Levi dowel.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Ah,
I
Yeah.
don't. I don't
Yeah.
have I don't have it around me right now. But
Everybody should have a Charles Levi
but
doll, that's for sure.
yeah, no
yeah,
doubt.
Vinny
No
does.
doubt.
Just
And
that.
a big shout out to Martin. Thank you so much for getting
Yeah.
that for him. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about it is that you don't know you're famous until you've got a doll, do you? Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah.
I thought I was famous when I had a cartoon,
There you
you know.
go.
Yeah.
Oh,
And and I thought I was really famous when I saw that cartoon as a
Yeah.
tattoo on somebody's arm.
Oh,
no
wow.
way. Oh my God, that's awesome.
But to have a
Yeah.
doll made of you,
Yeah.
that's
Uh-huh.
fame. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
fame right there.
I've been trying to get my own Action Man for a very long time, and
That's
so
right.
far it hasn't
Joe.
worked.
G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe.
Yeah, Joe. Someone asked me
I
one time, it was,
remember
they were,
walking down around in New York, and this guy runs up to me and he says, "Hey, man," and he pulled his sleeve up, and there was a thrill kill tattoo. He's like,
nice.
"This one, I can't believe I see you, and I got this. Oh my God!" And I was like, "Oh wow, it was awesome. It's better than one I had." You know, you know. I said, "Man, you got it going on." You know.
Oh
And
man.
he was so I got him into the show, into it was like uh, it was a private party, and I got this guy in, and he was happy, you know. Again, meeting someone, he
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
yeah,
happy,
Yep.
yeah,
and he
yeah.
had a great time, and we ate a bunch of food. We walked around and ate free food, and he had his tattoo. It was like it was like it looked like spray paint. It looked like it was glow in the dark.
Oh,
Oh wow.
wow.
And it was like
Yeah.
really, and I was like, wow, is that really paste? And I'm touching it. And he's like, oh, well," you know, and it was really cool, you know.
It's like a radioactive tattoo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Just get your
I was
Geiger
like,
counters out, click,
yeah,
click,
Yeah.
click, 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 click.
yeah. But we were eating, you know, we were eating the catered food they had at this private party, and it was someone with Kyoki was there, DJ Kyoki,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
and he was there, and he was like running around crazy. But it was really, you know, like you said, meeting people and doing those things and meeting them through our exploits is really, really fun, you know,
I know.
part of music.
I know, yeah. You remember that experience and he will remember that experience.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a shared, you've got all
yeah,
these little sort of shared stories and
yeah,
connections between people.
yeah,
Um, they remember the first time they saw you and the last time they saw you,
yeah,
and they remember what you said, and people remember what you wore. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like,
yeah. I remember what you did. And I was
yeah, yeah,
like, you bastard. No,
that's right, that's right.
I was always had some good things. Never anything terrible, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, meeting Phil Lynott was one thing that was an example. He said, I said, you can't talk to that woman because she's married. And he was like, oh, really? I go, yeah, man. Her husband is like 6'8", and he's a stage guy. So you have to be careful, man. And that's the first and that was the first time I ever met a black guy from Ireland. You know, he was like I couldn't understand him too clear, but he was like, thanks for warning me, man. Thank you
Yeah, yeah,
very much.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. He's good looking out, man.
Yeah, yeah, but
It's Elaine with bringing in Gloria. Say hello to
Gloria's getting
Charles.
excited.
Say hello to Charles, Elaine.
Hi,
Hey,
Charles.
hi, honey.
I know it's Gloria you want to say,
Oh, and we've
Rick.
got Gloria making an appearance too.
Gloria.
Woo!
Oh,
How
she's
you
got
doing?
lovely cold ears. Oh, she's got
Oh, she
lovely
got
cold
cold
ears.
ears. Wow. Hey, Gloria. Good to see you.
Oh,
Marco,
Yeah,
awesome.
another amazing musician you've been working for, as you mentioned, for years is Kevin Key. You touched
Yeah.
this in your book, Explicit in Purpose, but can you expand upon the process in which you and Kevin write music together?
Yeah. It's it's differed on whatever projects we've been together. But when I went to Vancouver to live, um, I went. I'd, it, I think it would probably be a couple of years after I'd left Soviet France. I was only in Soviet France for less than 2 years, but
Mhm.
I went with the sum total of I had bits and bobs of a drum kit, but I'd bought a 4-track tape, like a Tascam Porter One,
Uh,
and when I got into to Vancouver, I started to make some music for myself, and I bumped into somebody. Well, it was a long story. I think the story's probably in the book, but I encountered somebody who knew Kevin, and um, I really hadn't heard Skinny Puppy, and so I met Kevin because I mean Kevin was actually a big Soviet France fan and had helped to put on a show by Soviet France in not that I was there, but about a year before I'd moved to Vancouver. And so Kevin and I met, we just got on and we started to make music together. But to begin with, it was always at my place, which was just a small rented apartment in Vancouver. And we would make music with whatever was at hand. So I had this like copper log drum and I'd put microphones in it, and had
uh,
an effect unit that I'd rented. And he'd be like banging the copper drum. And then a friend lent me this synthesizer and Kevin would be getting all these noises. But we just had a lot of fun. And I
mhm.
was pretty much unaware of of who he was really, other than the fact that I really got on with him and he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And gradually, as we started to make more music together, um, I mean, I think the sort of turning point was when he and I did a tour of Ontario as Dead Voices on Air, and this was it
Wow.
was when Dwayne was still alive, so it'd probably been like '94 or something like that. So he and
Wow.
I did this tour of Ontario as Dead Voices on Air. We did 4 or 5 shows. We just had a real blast, and we'd already started to do downloads, so we were incorporating that kind of sound into the music.
Mm.
Um, but every time we've worked together, it's always been in a different kind of we've had a different kind of modus operandi. So to begin with download, it was all about improvisation. So we would get together usually late on a night and record for several hours
Mhm.
in Subconscious Studios in Vancouver, and everything was recorded. And then Kevin would really meticulously and rigorously edit things and create pieces of music from these improvisations. And
Yeah.
then I would go in and do overdubs, and Phil would do overdubs, and Dwayne would do overdubs. And after Dwayne had died, um, it was pretty much Kevin and I, because Phil left as well. Phil went off to
Yeah.
India and decided he just didn't want to be involved with it. And so for the Eyes of Stanley Payne album, that was very much a kind of Kevin and I with others like Ken Marshall. But it was a really composed album, if you know what I mean. We would create
Mm.
pieces of music together, some from improvisation, but some he acted as a kind of vocal coach to me, which was incredible because I learned so much. And even now, Kevin and I will laugh our heads off about this because he had an Eventide processor and he would like do amazing things with this. And I'd be
Yeah.
recording, uh, you know, high-end kind of recording equipment.
Mm.
And I'd do this vocal take, and it was a first take. And he'd go, "Yeah, that was great." And I'd be thinking, "Yeah, it's done. Let's go home. Let's go for something to eat."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Kevin would go, "Tell you what, that was great, Mark. It was fantastic. But let's just do it once more. Do it once more." So we do it once more, and he says, "Yeah, probably not as good as the first one, but I tell you what, let's do it once more. Come on,
Once
Mark, you
more.
can do it. Come on, let's get in the zone. Come on, we can do it." So I'd do it. And then 43 takes later, he'd go, "You know what, Mark? I think the first take was probably the best one."
Oh
But
my
it was
God.
brilliant though, because he was coaching me. He was coaching me in the use of a microphone, in the use of an effect. He was
Yeah.
coaching me in voice projection. He was coaching me in lyric construction. Everything was about the art of making music together.
Making
And I
music.
learned a ton from that. But you know, because Kevin and I, as improvisers, we put the miles in. It's like being a cyclist. You put the
Yeah.
miles in, you start to feel fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and I are like that. So when we get together and make music together, for
Mm.
me, there's there's a really powerful chemistry, like really powerful
Yeah.
chemistry. Some really, I'm going to describe them as violent sounds come out, because it's just this sort of sense of we can do this. We can take this into places where, you don't really want to go unless you're very brave. And I think he's done that for all of his career, and he's had an outstanding career, hasn't he? If you think about it.
Yeah.
He absolutely has.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've learned so much from him, and he's as close a friend as I've got, really. And yeah, every time he contacts me and says, "Shall we do something?" I will always say yes. He wouldn't have to
Yeah.
ask me once, or
Mm.
twice or three times. If he asks me to do something, I'm saying yes. When do you want it done by?
Mm.
Because there's just this kind of quality about it. The whole process is 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 covered in the quality of the work that he does.
Yeah.
And he's a good guy. I mean, I love the fact that he's made another life for himself with the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there right from the beginning, and to begin with, he was good, but now I think he's absolutely brilliant at it. It's just there's a real ease to it.
He's a
Yeah.
natural, honestly.
And we've done some together as well. We did one with John Fox that he and I still talk about, because John Fox was a huge influence to both of us. And I remember we never thought we'd get to do that, but we managed to pull it off, and it was incredible. And then we did one with Graham Lewis from Wire, who again, somebody who I loved, and
I
who
love
Kevin
that guy.
loves as well.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, Kevin left, and Graham and I were talking. And I just said to him, "Would you like to do some music?" And he says, "Oh, yeah."
Oh, awesome. Oh my God.
He says, "Yeah." And so a year later, we'd released an album together.
That's
Well,
good.
work on the
Which-
basis if
which
you don't
one?
ask, it's never going to happen.
Which one?
Which album?
Yes.
It's called, what's the album called? Holy shit. It's called Louis Spybey,
Louis Spivey. Okay.
and it's on
I'm
Emergency
gonna have to check that out.
Hearts.
Yeah, I love
It's
him.
on,
I saw them
it's
back
on
in
vinyl as well.
2012, I think, 2008. I can't remember.
Oh,
But
yeah.
they were just all of them were just there we go.
Wow.
Oh man.
That's the vinyl
Okay.
version.
I'll have to look that
I've
up.
got to show you this, though. This is like unbelievable. Yeah, this is on David Babbitt put together this thing, and this is the lathe cut vinyl. This is on Emergency Hearts.
Oh wow.
And these are 3 singles from the album, and it's in a book.
Okay.
I mean, this cost an arm and a leg to make. There's 3 singles in there.
Guess I'm gonna be
Wow.
spending
it's-
some more money this weekend.
Well, if you've got $100 to spare, you will be, yeah.
Yeah.
If there's any left.
Yeah, if there's any left.
Ooh,
Oh my
flexi.
God,
Wow.
that's beautiful. That is so
Flex-
freaking pretty.
Plexiglass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
And this
Damn,
is David
I
Babbitt's
love it.
design, but it's, again,
Yeah.
Scott Crow from Emergency Hearts. None of this would have happened without Kevin. That's the
Yeah.
truth. None of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Actually, none of this would have happened without Kevin and Martin Atkins,
Oh, okay.
because Kevin was recording the process in LA. Kevin and I were friends, good friends, and he
Yeah.
went down to LA to record the process, and Martin got involved. And Kevin said to Martin, "I'm working with this guy who does music. I think you should sign him to Invisible."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like that. The next thing you know,
Wow.
I'm at work, right? And I get a phone call. And it's Martin Atkins.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh.
awesome.
Martin said
Yeah.
something like, Kevin Key said, "I should sign you to my label." He said, "I'm going to sign you to my label." Something like that.
Oh
I'm
my
like going,
God, that's awesome.
Wow.
yeah, okay. How long for? He said, "I don't know, 57,000 years or something."
Oh my
So,
God.
and the next thing I know, is that I'm on a plane to Chicago, And I probably
Yeah.
met Charles. I probably met you there when I was there, Charles.
Yeah.
I'm on a plane to Chicago. I'm staying in the Invisible Loft. The Evil Mothers are there at the same time, so I get to
Yeah.
know Kurs Mackey, who
Yeah.
I love dearly. He was a very, very close friend of mine.
Yeah.
And Martin records an album. He gets this guy in called Julian Hertzfeld, a producer, to produce an album with me.
Yeah.
We take a couple of days, it's finished, it's out of the way, and Martin says, "Fucking hell, let's do a fucking concert together." So it was literally that. And it was like Chris Mackey was there, Kurs Mackey was there, and
Yeah.
he says, "Oh, I think we should get Eric Pounder involved from Lab Report."
Oh
And
yeah.
because we can call ourselves Spasm. And I'm like, how can it be Spasm if there's Spybey, Pounder, Atkins, and Mackey? How can
Yeah.
it be Spasm? He said, "Because fucking Satan's playing with us as well."
That sounds like Kurt.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
So we do this concert, and it was all about Wire. Curiously enough, because Martin had been asked to do a Wire cover version for an album that came out called Whore, which was a tribute to Wire. And
Yeah.
people like My Bloody Valentine were on it, and Godflesh,
Mhm.
Mike Watt, all sorts of folks were on it, Lush,
Yeah.
all sorts of people. And we were on it, Spasm were on it, and we did a cover of a Wire song, which we did live. So we did this show in the Invisible studio, and
Studio.
there's
Yeah.
about 30 people who came along, including folks like, I don't know if you know Stephen Collins.
I know.
Matt Schultz wasn't there because he was working.
Yeah.
But obviously Eric was playing with us, David Babbitt, Dave Baker, who used to work for Invisible.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Nat, people like that who were working there. Amy, got the
Amy.
second name now.
I
Yeah,
remember. I remember.
Amy was there, and the boyfriend Chris, who was a famous musician.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute ball. And all of this happened because Kevin said to Martin, "I think you should sign Dead Voices on Air."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Great
And
work,
Martin
Kevin.
took a punt. I mean, I think whilst I was there doing that, I think he was there, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to do a Christmas album." He says, "Will you rattle some chains for me?"
Yeah, I've got that album too. It's freaking awesome. It is
Wow.
awesome. Yeah.
Charles, you're probably on that album as well.
Yeah.
Chicago Industrial League or something like
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
that. And I was
Actually, I've
literally
got
in
the
there
CD.
like
Yeah.
I had chains that I was rattling, and I did some strange vocals and stuff like that. And he just recorded everything. But it was that kind of time, where everything seemed possible.
Yeah.
Everything's just seemed possible. I mean,
Awesome. Yeah.
how would you go about even thinking about putting a band like Pigface on the road?
I know. I know.
I know.
How would you do that? But he did it, I was flown for the first show in what's that place? It's in Oklahoma.
Oh,
It's got a,
Haynes.
yes,
Haynes Ballroom.
yes,
That's right.
yes. He
Yeah.
flew me down there.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the name of the town now, of the city.
Yeah. Tulsa.
Tulsa. Yeah, he flew me
Tulsa.
down there. It's a really famous venue, isn't it?
Yeah,
Elvis
Tulsa.
played there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Sex Pistols
Yes,
and
yes.
Merle Haggard, a lot of
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
famous
Yeah.
country
So,
artists
you know,
played there. And then
I'm
38
getting on the
Specials
plane. Yeah. I'm getting on a plane. I'm flown to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm starting a tour with Pigface, with Elaine as well. And
Yeah,
I'm like going, wow, this is like cool, this is really cool.
yeah. That was cool. That was a good time. That
Yeah.
was a good time.
That's the first night I met Jared.
Yeah,
He befriended us. I remember I had a really heavy flight case. In those days, we took a lot of gear, didn't we?
yeah,
We took a lot of
sure did.
equipment. I had a
Yeah,
really heavy flight case. And somebody said to me, it was somebody from the venue said, "For God's sake, do not pull that thing along this floor. this floor is worth millions of dollars because it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
the original ballroom floor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I'd just done that before he told me.
Oh, I know.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that place was
Um,
legendary. So
yeah.
really, yeah, it was. Yeah, that was really
So,
cool.
So you
Um,
and it was snowing. I remember that. It was I don't know, I think it was in February or something like that, but it was snowing outside and
yeah.
um fascinating. Yeah. I mean, it was a real eye-opener.
Uh,
I mean, learning how not to cope, how not to have a shower for 3 weeks was one of those.
yeah. I
Uh,
know. I wore leather pants, so I was all right. Yeah, it
That's
was
because
fun.
you know why? That's because you're cool, Charles.
Yeah, cool. Cool art.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool and collective.
you speak
yeah.
working with Kevin, Dwayne, and Phil on Download's freshman and sophomore releases Furnace and the Eyes of Stanley Payne. What changes in how you work alone did working with this particular collective bring about for you?
Um, I, they, for one thing, they respected the fact that I wasn't a technical musician, and
Yeah,
which I think was really helpful. I mean, not everybody around that sort of circle respected that, I think, but I mean, because some of the guys who knew Kevin were very studio
yeah.
technicians and stuff. But I
Like
was
dickheads.
I would literally, yeah, tech heads. I would literally plug something in. They'd be going, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "I haven't got a clue. I just plug it in." It's fine.
Yeah.
And so,
I know that
but
feeling so well.
but they taught me. We did one thing because they were using beats, and I was doing ambient stuff and layering things with delays.
Yeah.
They had this conversion table. So, and it converted BPMs to settings on various gadgets. Like, you could set your delays. If you were playing a BPM of 80, you could set your delays at something zero point 0.9 or something,
Mhm.
Right,
and it would
right.
all work in with the beat. So when we started a piece of music, they would say, right, set your machines now too, blah, 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 and you'd be like, changing these little settings, and it made a huge difference because the delays were all in time with the beat. So little things like that made a lot of difference. But I think it was just the application. They worked really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They worked really hard. I mean, um, Kevin would go into that studio at like 2 p.m. and would leave at 2 a.m.
yeah,
and he'd be
Yeah.
working solidly, and we would go for dinner and stuff like that. But he'd be working hard, and it's. So the Eyes of Stanley Payne might have took a month to make, but it was a month of 10-hour
Yeah.
days,
yeah.
Yeah.
7 days a week. I mean, it was I think I might have taken Sundays off, to be honest, but it was hard work.
Yeah.
So I think I learned a lot from that. I mean, I was the guy who was sat on the floor with a bunch of toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they loved that. They loved that part of me. Dwayne really, really loved that part of me because it
Yeah.
was so different to the kind of thing that they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but at the time, I thought this was an interesting kind of juxtaposition because you had the kind of hardcore techno stuff going in there, and
Mhm.
it was, and then you had the sort of beautiful elements that both Kevin and Dwayne and Phil could add. But then what I was adding over the top was this kind of wash. It was a wash.
Mhm.
And it was a wash created through, delayed vocals and toys and trumpets and God knows what,
Yeah.
anything that was at hand. Um, but it was an organic kind of feel. So there was an organic kind of meld between
Mhm.
that and the technical stuff and the electronic side of the music. And I mean, I still think Furnace is light years ahead, really.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds a lot less, it sounds not a lot, it sounds less dated to me than the As of Stanley Payne. Because it's kind of like futuristic techno music.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you go
but
on
it's
those early tours?
sorry.
Did you go on those early tours with Download?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't
Because
download. as far
I
as I'm
saw
aware,
I saw
down.
them in Seattle.
Yeah, I was
For
there.
the
Yeah,
furnace
yeah,
for the furnace
yeah, I
thing.
was there. Yeah.
So, all
I
right.
Download never toured after I'd left.
That was such a great show. That was
Yeah.
such a great show. Yeah.
We played the Phoenix in
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah. And
Phoenix
then
Underground. Yeah, yeah.
and then afterwards Kevin came and DJ'd at um the catwalk.
Oh, you did he? I can't remember
Yeah,
that. I was probably.
and he doesn't
Yeah.
remember.
He just-
Yeah, the catwalk. I
I do
remember.
remember I remember Seattle show. I do remember it
Yeah.
because it was the last one. It was the last show
It was a
of the tour.
fucking incredible show. Thank you
The
so
first
much.
show was in Portland, but we missed it because we were late because the bus was late.
Oh wow.
And Biohazard was supporting us, and we turned up, and Biohazard were playing, and we missed the show.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
But we went around the country and ended up finishing in Seattle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I played that Phoenix place, I think, 3 times. I
Yeah.
think
It was
Pigface
a
played
great
there for
venue.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I like the
we played
Phoenix.
there with Pigface. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
You
I
knew
also
Rick, right?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
I did. Yeah,
Good friend. Good friend. Jack A.
yeah.
Jack A.
Rick
Yeah.
wasn't Rick involved in somewhere with Northern Exposure.
The business partner for the Phoenix Underground was
The
the guy from
DJ
Northern
from
Exposure. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
He
Yes.
Yes,
was
I
he
remember
was in
Rick.
there one time and he was kind of a dick to some of the employees.
Ah,
I don't know. I was like, okay, well, you're whatever.
yeah,
But Rick
yeah,
was fucking Rick still is fucking amazing. Rick
yeah.
Jackie
Jackie, I can't see him as Jackie.
Jackie is just
He he did a
he's incredible. He's absolutely incredible.
that's
Didn't
when
I? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. I'll show you something. I'll show you something. I think I
Yeah.
can find it easily. Uh, yeah.
That is a very organized CD
Oh
system.
well, it's my life.
Yeah.
Now, this is a CD that I'm on,
Oh, wow.
and it's Damo Suzuki and Michael Caroli.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And this was recorded in the Phoenix there was a little picture of me on the back with a guy called Dustin Donaldson.
Oh, man. Awesome.
wow.
But I had a manager called Tom, who was German guy, who worked for Cannes record label, and he got me um, to support Michael Caroli and Damo Suzuki on a tour of the States.
Yeah.
Only did about 8 or 9 shows, but we ended up in Seattle, and we got the show because of my connections through the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it was recorded for a live album, and it's out there. Damo
Wow.
Suzuki's Network,
That is,
Seattle. Yeah,
that's
Wow.
incredible.
recorded at the Phoenix. There
Yeah,
you got little
look that up.
pictures. Look, maps of
Yeah.
Seattle
Yep.
inside.
Yep.
Wow.
They used to make this cool touristy map. That would have been better in there, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I played there with Damo and Michael as well.
Oh,
That
man.
was incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Fucking A.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I remember Kevin showing up at the Phoenix after the show, and I had done photos for them in '87 in Portland, and I came up and I was like, how are you doing? Because it was not long after
Yeah.
Wayne had passed, and he's like, oh, I'm great, man. I'm like, no, I mean, like, how
Yeah.
are you? And he's like, oh shit, yeah, no, it's a roller coaster. It's a fucking roller coaster. And I'm like,
Yeah. No, it still
but
is in some respects.
he said at the time, he said, I'm going to honor Wayne, and he's like, I've got so much recorded with him that we'll be releasing more stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and true to his
Yeah.
word, it's a fucking beautiful thing, man. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a devastating blow. It really was. That was a hard
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was. Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't know him. I didn't know Dwayne anywhere near as well as Phil, but I did know him well, and I was close. We were close, and
Yeah. I didn't know him
we
well.
spent some time.
Just That show, being backstage with them and hanging out with them and everything, Dwayne and Edward were like two peas in a pod, couldn't separate them. Very quiet, very reserved. Ogre's just fucking off his head. It was fucking hilarious. And Kevin, just being Kevin, being stoic, and yeah, that was fun times.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Was that when Edward was touring with them? He
yeah,
supported them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard stories about that.
I had thought I was never going to get to see Edward. Because my first experience with him was actually through Eyes China Doll and the other one, it's another one of the China Doll or China albums. I had got them I was working at a record store called Cellophane Square, and these two import records came in, and I grabbed them just because of the artwork and took them home. And I fell in love with everything he does. And then I found out he's legendary Pink Dots, and not long after Skinny Puppy, who's one of my favorite bands of all time, they're going to do a tour, and Edward Cospell's opening, and I was overjoyed. And Edward's
That's-
actually how I got to do the photographs
yeah. I mean, I was
at that
actually
show.
introduced to Edward through Kevin, and but they just in part because I'm English. It's a real easy sort of opening, to when you start
Yeah,
to hang out with people. But we all really got on. I mean, I got on with all of them,
yeah,
especially Niels. But at the time, I remember the Tear Garden recording sessions for. I
mm.
think the album was called. It's got a very long title: Angel, Cripple, Soul Divide.
The
Um,
oh, shit.
to be an angel or a crippled soul
To be
divider,
an
something
angel
like that. Yeah,
blind. To be an angel
yeah,
blind. Yes.
yeah. And so I was involved in the recording of that. I think I'm actually on a couple of tracks of the Teargarden album. But we did um, improvisations there where I think there were 11 people playing at the same time.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Um,
That's an incredible
and it was
album.
incredible. It was
Yeah.
incredible. It was great.
Yeah.
And then that was probably, what was it, something like 96, 97 or something.
Mhm.
But we just, every time they came through town, we hung out. And then when I ended up moving back to Europe, I actually lived with Niels for 6 months because in order to get my cat back into the UK, I had to bring them in from Europe, not North America.
Oh.
Um, so I lived with Niels and his family with my cat, and Elaine was back in the UK. And then whilst I was over there, I toured. I did two tours. One with um, As Dead Voices in Air with um, Dieter Mobius and Michael Rota from Cluster and Neu
Wow.
in Europe, and then I also did a tour of the States supporting the Pink Dots,
Mhm.
which was incredible. That was in 2000. That was a big tour. It was one of those 42 shows in 44 days kind of deals.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Like
that
you
kind of tour.
get to the end and just
Yeah.
collapse.
Well,
Yeah,
2 weeks in, everybody gets sick. 4 weeks in, everybody gets sick.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God.
um,
I miss
you
Yeah.
it.
lose your voice, you forget your glasses, you leave your contact lenses in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just like yeah.
disaster. That's
Oh man.
Oh,
So
she's back again.
hey,
Sorry,
so
well,
yeah.
you were talking about
yeah,
Zoviet-France, and
I was. I
you got
mentioned
to
it.
work with them. An old friend, early mentor of mine in my beginning musical journey, introduced me to them way back in the late '80s, and our apartment was always filled with oscilloscopes and static and broken toys and cut and paste reel to reel stuff. It was a wild time. I mean, I was just learning music. I had been a visual artist primarily, a writer, a visual artist before that, but getting to work with this guy who was a serious soundhead and also an incredible noise artist in his own right. Used to call his stuff soundtracks for a mental movie. It's likely borrowed, a borrowed phrase from something similar I saw in your book. But can you tell me how you came to making sound the way you do? I mean, is there a standalone moment or an epiphany of some kind that would shape your love of noise as art?
Um, yeah, well, yeah, I think um I mean I was involved in bands before Soviet France. They were just
Mhm.
and some of them were quite, avant-garde leaning.
Yeah.
Um, but when I met and started to play with Soviet France, they had a way of making music that I felt very close to. So it was all about improvisation.
Yeah.
Um, they made their own instruments. They, you know, um, used a lot of children's toys. They used very simple percussion instruments, and everything was processed, and
Wow.
everything was recorded, and then they would edit. But this was in the pre-computer days, so it wasn't as easy to do the editing. And they
Yeah.
and they'd been doing it for several years before I got involved. And for me, that was an eye opener because it kind of validated that sense of you don't have to be a technician, you
Mhm.
don't have to be educated to make art. You can
Yeah,
Yeah.
just gotta
and there were
dig.
I mean I had heard of Soviet France because I actually but this was in the pre-internet days. So I'd heard of them because I subscribed to a music catalog from a
Mhm.
store in the UK called Recommended Records. It
Oh,
was run
I
by
think I
guys
have
from Henry Cow.
I think I had some old
Yeah, it
catalogs
was
from
a
them.
great,
Yeah.
it's a great
Yeah.
label. Yeah,
Yeah.
and and it was. I remember they had um, a review of a Soviet France album, and it was the album Grease and it's packaged in a roofing felt, and
Yes.
they said, weighty and shredding grit. And I thought, I've got to have that. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, I ended up I ended up meeting one of the guys from Soviet France because we were both hunt saboteurs. We were both involved in the animal rights movement. He was in one town and I was in another town, and we would
Yeah.
communicate because we were both activists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were out stopping fox hunts,
Oh
and
man.
we just got talking about life. And he said, "Well, I'm a musician. I'm in this band called Soviet France." And I said, "Oh, right, I've heard of them." And we were talking and getting on, and he said, "Oh, one of the guys who's just left the band. Do you want to come and try out? Do you want to come and see if if it doesn't work, it doesn't work?" So I went, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll have you." So um,
Yeah.
I mean, so I was in them for a year and a half or so. But I mean, I think that I have a lot to thank because of that experience. I have a lot. I learned a lot. I learned some. I at that point in time was not involved in the recording process at all.
Mm.
I would literally just make music.
Yeah, music. Yeah.
Um, but I think it was you know, the act of making music together that was the where the magic happened. Um, and then I left. It obviously wasn't working out for all of us, for any of us, and I left. And 3 years later, or 2 years later, or something, I emigrated to Canada. Years later, I got involved again and started to communicate with Robin, um, who I always thought was the kind of unsung hero, unsung genius behind Zoviet France, really, because he was really. Robin is one of the most instinctive musicians that I've ever met. He can literally pick up anything, make a beautiful sound out of it. I mean, I don't think any of us who are involved, including Robin and I, would say that what we do is make noise. I think, for me,
Mm.
I think that's too easy a kind of way to describe what we do. I think what we do is we make music. Sometimes that music
Mm.
may sound like noise, but you know what? That's great because everything around us has got a tone or a resonance, and we just tap into that. We
Yeah.
just make use of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'm very close to
That's a
Robin
great way to
still.
describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, Robin and I still make music together, and we've got a new album that we've done, and we've done about 8 or 9 albums together since over the last 10 years or so. Um, and we play concerts together, and he still makes music every single day. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, I'm prolific, but he's super prolific. He's just, he makes art. That's what he does in his life.
Yeah.
He makes music. And
Yeah.
I think it was a very, again, it was, you go through life, and so there are certain kind of times when something special happens.
Mhm.
So working with
Mhm.
Zoviet-France was a special thing for me, and
Yeah.
something I hold dear to me. Uh, Going to Canada and accidentally, and then becoming friends with Kevin was a special thing to me. Meeting Martin was a special thing to me. Um,
Yeah.
and you just go through these kinds of experiences, and getting to work with the guys I'm working with again now, Steve, Martin, Gary, the people who are here, all friends of mine, is a special thing. And
Yeah.
um, and I feel blessed, because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, feel it's I feel really good when I think about the opportunities that I've had.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you should.
and
Mhm.
lucky, very lucky as well, right
Yeah.
person, right place, right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Timing's
That's
everything.
that's fucking
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah. No, it
You're
it is. That's a good point. Noise is a bad description, because every sound has its own beauty and its own music, and I hear music everywhere,
Me
and
too. Yeah. Yeah. And
you
we
know,
make sense of it, don't we?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
we
that's
organize it. And we
yeah,
organize it, and we collect it, and
yeah.
we can compose it as well. We can compose
The
with it.
the ambience of avant-garde stuff. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
a fucking
I mean, I'm
beautiful thing.
still
I love
discovering music that I love, that's
yeah,
50, 60 years old, 100 years old. I'm still
yeah,
discovering new stuff
Yeah.
all of the time because there's just literally so much out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Uh,
it's fantastic.
So that takes us to Propeller, who until I started reading the book, I was not aware was you. Back in 90, 95, 96, maybe 97, I found Rame. That is how it's pronounced, yeah, Rame
Rame.
or Rame. Rame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found a slip disc copy of that. No titles, just 36 tracks of amazing, amazing sound. And I played the living hell out of that. And it's that is long gone lost. But thankfully, there's this wonderful site called Discogs, and I now have ordered because I was reading about this in the book and the copper with the piss on it
Yeah.
uh, for the case, and I'm like, oh, I found the copy and it's
Yeah.
on its way to me now. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that. That was a great thing to read about that one in there. It was just mind blowing to me when I saw. I'm like, wait, this is that CD. Um, what is your fondest memory of making that recording on the
Yeah. I think
tape?
it's there's two memories. The first is again about people. So there was a guy called Keith Parry who ran a small record shop and label in Vancouver called Scratch. I mean, when I first went into Scratch, it was absolutely tiny, but it was a fantastic shop. And he had this little label, and a friend of mine called Zev, and not the Zev, but Zev Asher,
Yeah,
Mhm.
who sadly passed away as well. Zev was releasing music through Keith's label, and he said, we should go talk to Keith about releasing an album. So I did.
yeah,
And of course, he was familiar with what I was doing. Keith was a drummer and he was in bands. He was in a band called Superconductor and various other bands in kind of, indie bands in Vancouver. But he was a lovely guy. Anyway, Keith said, I'll release an album by you. And I said, okay, I want to do this kind of side project because at the time I didn't really want to, well, I couldn't because I had a contract with Invisible. I couldn't
Yeah.
do Their Voices in Air with anybody other than Invisible. And I wouldn't want to, piss Martin off.
yeah,
So I created this side project called Propeller. And initially I said I wasn't even involved in it. I made up the names of the people who were in it.
yeah,
Um, and and I recorded this album all by myself. And I chose. I gave myself a target of trying to create pieces of music that felt finished to me that were all about a minute long.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I failed because some of them are like 2 and 3 minutes, but some of them are really short, like 15
Yeah.
seconds short.
Yeah.
And I just had a lot of fun with it. And, I didn't find it difficult to do at the time, but I actually revisited some of this during COVID and tried to work in the same kind of way. And I found it really difficult.
Oh,
Because the more you think about it, the more difficult it is. If you just kind of go splurge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did splurge and I had an album, but Keith was amazing. Keith Parry was amazing. I said, right, let's do it in crazy packaging. And he said, what? Like I said, let's put it in a sheet of metal. And he was like, going, great. What kind of metal? Copper. And I was just sort of saying this stuff. And he was like, great, right. Okay, let me go away and think about this. So he went away and he sourced a manufacturer, a supplier of copper in Vancouver. So the next thing you know, Keith on the phone, he says, Mark, I'm going to take you to this bloke. He's a metal supplier and he's got copper. And he's going to talk to us about how you stain copper. So we get together with this guy and he said, oh, you need X, Y, and Z chemicals. He said, in the olden days, they used to use horse piss.
Yeah.
And we were like going,
Yeah.
all right.
Alrighty,
So he buys the
Oh.
copper, and it wasn't cheap, but we had to stain it. Well, luckily I'd found a chemical that stains it, I think it's
Yeah.
called liver of sulfate. I mean, it stinks, but it's and so Keith being Keith, having a circle of friends, we all got together and one night we assembled this CD. I think we made 200 copies of it overnight, and it took us the whole of the night. And he just bought a ton of red wine, and they had some food there, and there was like 10 or 12 people. We had a big table out in Scratch Records, and we literally put the whole of the album together. Everything from staining the urine, staining the copper, rather, to drying it, to packaging it, to wrapping it up, to putting it in the
Oh,
plastic
man.
bags, the whole thing. And yes, what we did was, because we said we would do that, we pissed into the bucket where the liver of sulfate was.
Oh, that's fucking brilliant. That is fucking brilliant. As the
Because we said we would
stuff
do that,
going
we did
back
it.
in time, going back in time for old-timey ways to do anything creative. I mean, I know that they used piss to something with wool and
Yeah.
for cleaning
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah,
Roman
yeah.
days stuff.
Yeah.
And
It's the acid in it, isn't it?
I love
Urea.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I love it when
I mean, we did dry them all, and I'm sure they're not. I think we had a hair dryer and
Why does it
stuff,
smell funny? Yeah.
But it was, and the second story about Propeller that I find hilarious is that there was a record shop in New York called Other Music
Yeah.
that was like really hip, it was like really hip place. I've been in there several times. It was it's the kind of place where you bought really hip music from. And I went in there and I was talking to the guy behind the desk, and I was at that sort of stage of my career where I was going into record shops to see whether or not my CDs were in them, which I haven't done for feels like decades, but I was doing it. And I said, "How come you don't have any of my albums?" And he says, "Well, what label's it on?" And I said, "Invisible." And he says, "We wouldn't stock that shit."
Oh, jeez.
That's what he said.
Oh,
We
wow.
wouldn't stock any of that shit. I'm like going,
Oh my God.
and behind him on the wall was my Propeller CD. I said, he won't stock that shit, but he'll stock that shit because that's me. And he's going, no fucking way, Propeller, that's fucking genius. And I'm like going,
Vindication. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my God, that's awesome.
I mean, the snob, you're such a snob that, they wouldn't stock anything on Invisible Records because they thought it was a shit label.
Yeah.
But he would stock Propeller. That doesn't sound that different to my early Dead Voices and Air albums. It doesn't sound that different to Hafted Mall.
Right.
The tracks are just shorter,
Just hit it.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Well, the good news is that record shop went bust. So
Yeah.
Oh my
So go
gosh.
figure, Charles. Go figure.
Yeah,
Oh, funny.
that's good.
But yeah, I thought it was funny, really funny. And it sort of vindicated me to a certain extent because it was, um, you know, a Propeller was picked up by different people,
Yeah.
um, and it and I really enjoyed it. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed the whole process. The second one was as complicated, but it was all done in a much more sort of civilized way because we used a template uh, that another band had used for this really beautiful envelope that wrapped the CD in it. But it was
Yeah.
still, it was still a kind of complicated process.
Oh man. Thank you. That's
But
perfect,
yeah,
James. Yeah.
um, if in doubt, piss in the bucket, boys. Remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
There's always a go-to when you
If
go
in doubt,
to.
piss in the bucket, boys, and call it art.
yeah.
Like
You're
So,
an
Robert
incredible,
Mapplethorpe. Yes.
Yeah.
incredible lyricist and musician.
Andreas Serrano. He did this famous, it's called Piss Christ.
His Christ.
And
Yes.
Remember
it's a
that?
picture of a
Mhm.
crucifix that somebody's pissing on.
Yeah.
And it's
I
all
used to have I used to have a print of
beautifully
yeah,
blurred. It's
yeah.
beautifully blurred, but it's a beautiful image.
It
Piss
is an
Christ. Yeah.
absolutely beautiful image. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah. Oh man. Dude, you're awesome. I love that.
In your book, you state, I don't see myself as a front person. I suspect that bands that rely on individuals in the spotlight are essentially limiting their resources. Can you please speak more about this assessment?
Um, yeah. Well, I don't know whether or not I don't know whether or not I'd feel I agree with what they said about the second part of that, about limiting resources.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I think if I was a front person, I would be limiting my resources. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I've never been in the theatre side of things. I know some people are, and some people are exceptionally good at that, and all credit to them. But for me, um, I I came from the school where it didn't matter what I looked like, and I'd kind of like to be in the shadows rather than being in the spotlight. I didn't mind being on stage. I love performing, but I'm not the kind of person who's sort of like, I'm not a Jared or a Curse. Do you know what I mean? I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah.
I feel really, they're so good at it. I feel really uncomfortable doing that because I just don't feel, I don't feel that comfortable and confident
Yeah,
around that sort of stuff. For me, I kind of like the Joy Division school of making music, which is just heads down. I know Ian Curtis did his thing, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't think that was an act. I think that was Ian Curtis kind of like
Yeah.
just being taken over by the music.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and it was very, very natural. I mean, I think some people have been outrageously good at performance. Like if you think about Iggy Pop over his career,
mm,
unbelievably, what a showman.
Right.
yeah,
No.
yeah,
Just incredible.
yeah,
But for me, I'm just not of that ilk. I like to play in the dark, and I like to play with images, and I don't
yeah,
particularly, I, d- you know, I mean, I do engage with the audience. Over the years, I do that a lot more
yeah.
to the point where several times now, other people have been playing with them. Mark, shut up, play some music,
Do it. Do
because I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm enjoying
Yeah.
the conversation. Uh,
Oh,
there's a dynamic there, and I'm like just enjoying it. I get carried away, but
Yeah,
you need a
see, I
sampler
just
when you're doing that. So you can
yeah,
start sampling the music and incorporating the conversation right into the piece.
yeah.
mm,
Things
Just a
become
thought.
almost like kind of legendary. I
Yeah.
remember I released a live album. One of the last things I did for Invisible was a live album, and it was of some shows mainly on the Pink Dots tour. And there was a show we did in Detroit. No, it was in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was an open air show. And it was one of those days where it could have thundered or it couldn't. We were thinking we
uh,
were going to be in serious shit if it thundered because it was an open air show. But I remember going on stage and saying something like, "I'm going to play really sort of laconic. I'm going to play a Leonard Skinner song now." You know, just and I don't know why I said that, you know, because I hate Leonard Skinner. Okay, because
Oh my God.
I think one of the things that you often heard at concerts was play some Skinner, man.
Skinner! Yeah. Freebird! Yeah.
That's right. And somebody said Freebird. I says no, we're going to do Sweet Home Alabama. And people still talk to me about that. It's like, you know, people
My
still
God.
talk to me about it. But it's like that kind of that kind of like dialogue to me is I I'm not serious all of the time. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a human being and I like to have fun. And
Yeah.
somebody else I did some shows with once actually instructed the band. I won't say who it is because it just doesn't matter. But they instructed the band not to smile on stage. I'm not joking. Oh my
Oh my
God.
God. You know, you've seen the
It's like
pictures of me where I've got like the makeup going all up my.
yeah. It's like
That
I
was the
saw
thing I started in the 80s because people were like that. Oh, we're goth. We got to smile. We got to, ooh.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck you. Smile. Put a
Well,
big old
that's why
smile
in
on
that
your
pig face, Charles will probably remember that. That's why in that pig face tour, me and Martin King started to wear orange all of the time. Me and Martin King and I were going out and we were buying
Yeah,
orange t-shirts because we were
orange.
sick of black.
Yeah, orange. Yeah,
face. Yeah, right?
yeah. I
And we were going,
remember.
Martin King and I were going around saying,
I bought
orange
a.
is the new black. You know,
Yeah, I bought an orange hockey jersey.
Oh my God.
right.
Yeah,
Loads of us
yeah,
started to wear, on that tour, loads of us started to wear orange, you know.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was,
Orange.
Yeah. That's fucking
you know,
amazing.
that's the kind of, yeah, I like to have fun when I'm playing live. I like to
Yeah.
have fun. I like to laugh.
Yeah, me
Um,
too, for sure.
but
I
I
mean,
can't stop myself, you know, because I feel I can't stop myself because I actually think the act of making music is a playful act.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's playful,
It's
fun.
it's a
That's what it is.
joyous, playful act, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Now,
feel joyous when I'm doing it as
yeah.
well.
Now,
That's
speaking of
good.
playful acts, you mentioned in the book your love of using other languages for inspiration in some of your titles and stuff. I do this too sometimes. You know, translating painting titles. I think it was sometime in the mid 2000s. It was one of the first computers I had got because I was very late on that. And I'm typing something in, and this thing pops up and says translator, and I'm like, translator? And it's got all these freaking different languages in it. And I click on a language that I don't even know what it is. I click on it and it gives me this beautiful, beautiful thing for the title with, you know, like umlauts and weird squiggles and stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to title everything with a different language. And so I started doing that. And as just for fun. Uh, what what attracted you to doing that?
Hmm.
Um, well, two things. One is Soviet France did it, and I
Okay.
thought they did it really, really well. So if you look at their early albums, they used Old Norse or Old English words a lot.
Yeah.
And they turned me on to this book by a guy called Robert Graves, who actually wrote I, Claudius, who was a poet as well. The book is called The White Goddess, and it's a very difficult book to read, but it's the kind of book you can flick read. And there's all sorts of lists of words from old Old English and from the Norse, and with the translations into English. And it's
Mhm.
fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
It is.
So
It
old, you
absolutely
know,
is.
for example, shepherds in England had a way of
Mhm.
counting, and they would count, and Yan Tan Tethera was 1, 2, 3. Yan
Okay.
Tan Tethera.
Uh,
Isn't that beautiful? That's Old English.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I
Uh,
thought, so I think Soviet France did it, so I sort of stole it really. I liked the idea of doing that. And then when I started Download, I was really into at that time another book of Nordic poetry. and I've forgotten the bloody name now. It's very, very famous.
Okay.
It's a Nordic kind of gee whiz. Anyway, yeah, that's not great, is it? But anyway, it's so I would use that quite a lot to come up with words to say, and we ended up titling a lot of the Furnace album through from that source,
Yeah.
and occasionally I would even use uh whole text of it and just cut it up. Uh, and so there were certain songs on Furnace that were using a lot of Old English.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what the literal meaning was. I mean, I think some of it was, I think there's a song called Heat Heard, and that literally means hate. I think it literally meant hate song.
Oh, that's
And I thought
awesome.
I think it does. I could be wrong. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I would take things like that seemed to make sense to me, but I never, it wasn't, I wasn't studiously interested in it. I mean, over the
Yeah.
years, I've used other languages as well. I
Yeah.
mean, rame is an Italian word. All of the Propeller albums are named after Italian words for metal.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I think there's four Propeller albums, and they're all named after a metal.
That,
Um, yeah, and I just
that's
used Italian words because the Italian words sound better than copper.
yeah. Right.
I mean,
That's
in
incredible.
Italy, they're probably like going, "Oh, copper's a much better word than rame or whatever." Um,
It's always
but it
greener.
felt
Yeah.
felt attractive to me, and I've continued to do that. But I mean, I think at a certain point, words became much, much more important to me.
Yeah.
When I started to write songs, and I've periodically returned to writing songs.
Yeah.
And I just remembered something that I thought was really cool. I think there was only 100 of these made, but I made a tape about 10 years ago. It was a tape release on a very small German label, and it was called 100 Titles. And each of the tapes had a different title.
Oh, wow.
So you got a piece of paper in it that said what the title of that tape was.
Oh,
So
that's
the
cool.
whole thing I call 100 Titles, but
Yeah.
there were
You-
100 titles.
Yeah. Man,
And
that
I,
is
I culled
really
all of
freaking
those
awesome.
things from lines of poetry that I've written. So
Yeah.
the whole thing, I think I included the whole thing within the tape package. I mean, I'd have to have a look, but um,
Wow.
so I can be quite. I think I said earlier on, I find it difficult to write, which I do. But
Yeah.
when I get into the act of writing, I can be very prolific.
Yeah.
But I have to be influenced by something. So, you know, for example, I did an album with the Gnome, Tony DePorto, about 2 years ago, and I did several songs on there that I would consider to be some of my best songs in terms of the lyrics, and they came easy because of the music that I was being asked to kind of provide the words to. And that also happens with when I'm working with Nathan as well from the Drood. We did an album together, and I sang some and he sang some. It was released a year or so ago, and so I get into that act again. So I've always been really interested in words. I mean, I think I got into music because I was a visual artist,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
was also writing poetry
Yeah.
before I started to make music. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's the way I did it too. I started
Um,
out as a painter and
yeah,
drawing and stuff, and then now I call myself an all media artist.
yeah.
So
I call myself a piss artist.
yeah. But I
Piss
also
artist.
I'm also, my I'm
Uh,
working with a band called Benign Affections right now, my friend Mark, and he hates it when I say I'm not a musician. And I'm like, but I'm not. I'm not like technically
I
trained on
I
stuff. I
actually
just grab
I
an
actually see
instrument
that
and
as a
make
bad.
noise. So
I actually see that as a badge of honor
yeah,
to
I
say
kind
you're
of
a
I kind of do
non-musician.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
I mean, I love working with people who can really play instruments. I mean, Charles is an
yeah,
outstanding,
that's
outstanding
a
bass player.
Thank
very
you.
impressive skill. It really
I can
is.
play the
But
drums.
I don't have
I
that.
think I'm a pretty decent drummer, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
that's
getting better at it. The more I'm doing, I mean, I'm starting to understand chords on the piano and stuff because normally it's just I know this side's high and this side's low and I can play
yeah.
around.
Well,
I'm a
you know
noodler,
what
I
they
guess.
say, Jodo? Yeah, practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Yes,
Practice makes that.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I've been doing it for a long time and I'm better at it than I realized that I was. So that's a good thing. But I am
Yeah,
starting to be able to play the same stuff over and over and over again, which has always kind of eluded me. And so that's a good feeling.
yeah, yeah. I like it. I like going off on a tangent, you see.
Yeah.
I find rehearsing, especially when I'm rehearsing songs, really hard. I must be a pain in the
Yes,
ass to the people, my
it's
friends who I'm
very
working with.
tedious for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're a drummer and in your 60s and you're playing at like 700 miles an hour. Like you get really tired.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you do that you
Got
do
a little
that for half
sleeping
an
bag
hour, an
behind the
hour, and
drum
it's like,
kit.
it's like not surprised
Yeah.
Martin's hips have given way, because it's
Yeah,
like really
right.
hard work. It's
It
hard
is
work.
really hard work. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
it's
could
wear and
imagine.
tear, isn't it? Wear and
Yeah.
tear.
Wear and
Yeah.
tear. Yep. Oh my God.
Yeah, I sit there and
Oh.
play my bass and I get tired, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even for me, uh,
Mm.
I, I I've had to buy some gloves to play
Yeah.
the drums in
Yeah.
because I find that I get all sorts of tingles and
Yeah.
and headaches due
Yeah.
to my neck,
Yeah.
because it's actually a very physical thing to do.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I just got this the other day.
Oh yeah.
It's a brace because there's no cartilage between my bones now and spurs growing. It's arthritis in my lower thumb
Ah,
on my
right,
left hand.
right,
So
right.
luckily, I've
Yeah,
kind of trained myself to be semi-ambidextrous, depending on what I'm doing. And
yeah.
it's something I got fascinated with when I was like 16. Um, and I've noticed that if I'm playing guitar left-handed, I can do bar chords with my right hand. I cannot do bar chords with my left hand. But I
Oh, you can do
primarily
something that I
play,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
I primarily play the guitar with my left hand on the neck, like a righty. We were talking about a surgery for this hand, and I'm thinking maybe I'm going to start trying to teach myself to play guitar lefty, and you know, we'll
Well,
see how that works out.
it never hurt Jimi Hendrix, did it? Or Kurt Cobain?
No, yeah, no doubt, right? Or Eric Drost.
Well, well, dead by 27, but apart from that, it never hurt them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Eric's pulled through though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric's done a good job. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And he can play left and right apparently.
Ah,
So, but yeah, I noticed on the last Legendary Paint Dots tour, because my niece was learning to play guitar and she wanted to learn how to play like her hero Kurt Cobain. So she's trying to play lefty. So I strung up a couple of guitars left-handed for her and let her start practicing on those. And while I was watching the show, I noticed that Mark's playing a left-handed guitar right-handed
ah.
or vice versa. I can't remember right now, but I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, this is what my niece is going through. Can you give me some pointers that I can give to her? And he was so very gracious about that. He's such a great guy. But yeah, he was saying, yeah, just the main thing is try not to learn to play upside down because I guess that's what he does. And he's like, it's very hard and it makes it impossible to play other directions.
Yeah.
So he's locked himself into something really unique, but damn, it's incredible. So anyway, sorry, tangent.
Who are some artists you'd love to collaborate with, Mark, that you haven't already?
Um, I was, what? I was asked this question recently. I've just been really lucky. I've worked with some really interesting people, and I think it's the um it's a difficult one to say because
Mm.
I'm not really that ambitious anymore. But when somebody asked me this question recently, my immediate response was Miles Davis. I said, no, I
Oh,
said, my immediate response was, well, nobody alive, like nobody alive. And then I said, I know who, Miles. It's got to be Miles because
yeah,
Miles Davis to me, especially during that Bitches Brew, that
Yeah,
on the corner kind of fear. I was
yeah,
just unbelievable. Not only was it as
yeah,
funky as hell, and I always
yeah.
love funk. Not only was it funky as hell. I mean, in terms of the dynamic of the musicians, it was second to none. But it was
Uh,
also the fact if you watch Miles, and the great thing about Miles Davis is that there's tons of live video footage. If you watch Miles, it's a
uh-huh.
study in how not to play because
Yeah,
he will be holding off, holding off. And when he comes in, you know that it's exactly the right time.
yeah,
And, it's that kind of like, he's listening to what's going on around him. I mean, he's
yeah,
listening hard. And it was just unbelievable. I absolutely adore that kind of music, Still, I could listen to Miles all day long.
yeah,
And I go through phases where I don't listen to much other than Miles Davis. So I mean, it's not just Miles. There's all sorts of other jazz and funk artists who I'm interested in. But that's the kind of yeah, that would be the dream.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it ain't ever gonna happen, Joey.
You answered my question,
It's
so
never gonna happen, George.
Maybe in my dreams.
Mhm.
what do you guys have?
That's pretty good.
so
Hmm.
we have another thing in common, Mark. Cycling.
Oh yeah,
When did you
yeah.
start riding?
Seriously, about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but really seriously, about 6 years ago.
All right.
Um, and but I'd always had a bike. But yes, I retired, and
Mhm.
it just created the opportunity for me. As a friend of mine says, well, we can go out whenever we want to go out. We don't just have to go out on a Sunday now, even if it's raining. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
if it's raining tomorrow, I don't have to go out. I'll go out on Monday.
Yeah.
But I just found it's a beautiful thing to do.
It really is.
It really inspires me. Um, it's about the kind of independence of, you know, um, being somewhere and being entirely in control of everything around you. And
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm lucky because I live in a place where I can go out and see beautiful things really easily.
Yeah.
Um, and I've just become. I think it becomes almost addictive, doesn't it?
It
There's a
does.
certain a
Very much so. Yeah.
certain there's a certain kind of quality of the addiction that's very you know the fitter you get, the more you want to do.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
I mean,
I
there's
mean,
got to be an addictive quality to it to get you up at 2 in the morning so that you can ride from 3 to 5 in the morning just so you can get your ride in. And
yeah. Well, I don't have to do
that's
that, of course.
that's primarily how I was doing
Yeah,
it. Mainly after I got hit by a truck while I was riding, and
yeah,
that nearly killed me back in 2019. And but I was amped to get back on my bike immediately because I didn't want to be
I mean,
fearful of getting back on my bike.
it's
So
it's it's inherently dangerous, but at the same
yeah,
time, I've got to tell you, I've become incredibly safety conscious riding
yeah.
now.
Oh man, yeah. Getting
I
hit by a truck
I
will do
don't,
that to you
you
for
know,
sure.
yeah, but I mean, not just around traffic, but even,
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a very hilly place, so
Hmm.
you can't, I can't really ride anywhere without taking up some serious hills, which also means some
Yeah. Oh
serious
yeah.
descents.
Yeah, it
And the
does. And
descents, are
yeah,
scary as
I've
hell.
wiped out a couple of times going downhill, down
Yeah,
a steep hill, and I was on a mountain bike one time and I did that. And my first thought when I jumped up, I was looking around to see if anybody was there. I'm like, did it look cool? Did it look cool?
yeah.
You know? because
But
it
it's
felt like it looked cool.
so I'm very cautious, and I take my safety really seriously. But I just love it. I
Yeah,
mean, I wouldn't say I'm not remotely interested in trying to ride faster than anybody else, or trying to
Yeah,
take over people, or trying to prove how fit I am.
yeah.
I
I
just
yeah.
want to
love,
ride
I
The
faster
just love
than
cycling.
Olympics.
myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
my concern was always riding faster than myself, and or riding farther than myself. I was always
My concern was not walking. That was it. Just anything to keep from walking.
Oh.
You know. Yeah.
Right on,
I
man.
walked all.
That's awesome.
I walked for years.
Yep.
I don't need to walk anymore.
Oh
But
man.
now I have one leg.
Yeah.
I walk as much as I can, pretty much.
Oh man. So, Mark, are there any words of wisdom for the youngsters and the oldsters making creative anarchy through noise in this new age of fuck everyone, only I matter mentality that has gotten a real following lately?
Uh, yeah.
Good job.
Be there for each other. Be
Yeah,
there for each other. And
yeah,
and and we're living in an age right now where they want you to feel afraid.
Yeah.
They
mhm,
want you to feel fear.
Yeah.
Don't allow them to do that. Because as
no,
soon as you buy into that mentality, you know,
mhm,
you become a hostage to them and the way
Yeah.
that they want you to be. So follow your own course. I'm actually of the mindset that every act that you take by yourself to do what you need to do,
Mhm.
especially through making art, can be a revolutionary act.
yeah,
You can initiate a change. It might be a change for yourself, it might be a change for the people you know. It might even be a change for the world, who knows? But
Yeah.
don't give up
yeah,
and remember that, these people come and go. Mussolini came, and look what happened to Mussolini.
Mhm.
He was a
mhm,
dictator, and then the next
Yeah.
thing you know, he's been hung upside down by his own people who are kicking his head in.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
And then in Rio.
these people come and go. We've just got to
yeah,
carry on. We've got to be there for each other, and we've got to, you know, um, believe that we can make the world a better place, and we can. We just have to ride the storms, because this is a storm for sure. It is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah,
you know, these are as darker days as I can remember, and but I'm not gonna allow them uh um to I'm not going to I'm not going to fall into the trap of ensuring that my life becomes a kind of um fear, living in fear about what might happen next.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because we don't know what's going to happen next. We
exactly.
absolutely don't know that.
Yeah,
We don't know if today is our last day. We just don't know that. All we can do is try to make our little part of our world as good a place as it possibly can be, and to demonstrate that compassion and care and love for other people. Which I think we're doing that right now. I think we're doing it right
yeah,
now. So
Yeah.
uh, don't give up, folks. These are and make art. And if you want to get out in the streets, get out in the streets. Just take care of yourselves, because they ain't messing around.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and but I think we'll be all right. I think we'll get through this, and I think we'll find ourselves hopefully in a better place. I mean, this is either the death throes of capitalism or the age of tyranny. You
sure.
choose.
Yeah,
You choose. We make a
For
choice
sure.
about it. We can choose not to buy into this,
Yeah.
and we can choose by not doing something. I mean, good. I think an interesting piece of advice is ration your consumption of the news. Just ration it.
Yeah.
Scale back on it. Go once a day, and go to a reliable source of
Yeah.
information.
mhm,
Um, as a reliable source as there is, as opposed to
yeah,
You know, something that is
There's a
just
couple
there
of
to
them out
tell you
there.
exactly what they want to tell you.
Yeah.
Because they're selling advertising space for who knows, God knows who, you know.
If you're
We
getting
just got to
your
be there for each other.
commentary, if you're getting your news with commentary, you're
Yep.
not getting you're not getting news.
Yeah,
You know,
just be there
just
for each other, and remember, you know, we can help each other,
Yeah.
and showing that kind of care, compassion, and respect and love for each other is the way forward.
yeah,
Not
for
to buy
sure.
into the hate, you know.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anything else you'd like to promote today?
Um, Yorkshire tea.
Yorkshire
I'm
tea.
joking.
Good stuff. Good stuff. A good, what
I,
is it?
I'm.
A good bit of Wesleydale there, yeah?
No, there is a. I'm joking, but there actually is a famous tea company called Yorkshire Tea,
Yorkshire tea,
um,
yeah.
which is the tea that I happen to drink. Not
Oh,
just because I'm from Yorkshire, and I'm living in Yorkshire, because
Yeah.
it's really tasty. But no,
Yeah.
I've got nothing. I've got nothing to sell, Joe.
Okay. Okay. Well, King. Well, first off, Mark, it's been a real treat talking with you, man.
yeah,
And I'm
definitely.
just gonna put this out there. I'm totally down to work on stuff if you're ever in the mood. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, well, you know where I am. All of you know where
Yeah,
I am.
I
Yeah.
think
I
I do.
rarely,
Yeah.
I rarely say no to stuff.
But seriously
Um,
though, thank you so much for being here and for what you do. It means the world. It really does. I've loved talking to you.
well, it's an
And
absolute honor. It's an
yeah,
absolute honor. I mean, to connect with all of you, Charles.
yeah,
I love you to
Yeah.
bits. You
Love
know,
you too, man.
yeah.
yeah.
You're in my heart, and
Thank you.
you're in my thoughts. And take care of yourself. I want to
Yeah.
see you in Denver, and love to sit down and have a chat and
Yeah.
give you a nice cuddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can use it. That's cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, stripper poles and glory holes, this brings us to the end of another show, dedicated as ever to our dear friend Jason Lupo. Be kind, but keep vigilant, family. We are in this together, no matter what some people would have you believe. If you need help, a shoulder, someone to hear and see you, reach out. The world is better with you in it. We can still outnumber the downside of this shit. So just hang on and
absolutely.
don't try to
Yeah.
fucking do it alone. Please remember to check in on the strong ones too. They are quiet and aren't used to asking for help. You are not alone. Love hugs and belly rubs. Cheers.
Yes.